My name is Rebecca Hayes, a 39-year-old woman who thought she knew the meaning of family loyalty until the day my own mother stood in a packed courtroom and tore my life apart. It was a crisp morning in a small-town American courthouse, the kind you'd see in any Midwestern city, where I sat at the defendant's table during a brutal custody battle for my 8-year-old son, Tyler. Dressed in a simple navy blazer and white blouse, my hands trembled slightly as I faced the harsh fluorescent lights and the weight of my mother's words. "Your Honor, my daughter is unstable," she declared, her voice cutting through the tense air like a knife. "She can barely hold a job and shouldn't have custody." Across the aisle, my ex-husband Marcus smirked, his high-priced lawyer nodding along, clearly in on this orchestrated attack. The sting of betrayal hit hard, my own mother painting me as an unfit parent in front of strangers, my son, and a judge I'd known for years. As murmurs filled the courtroom, I felt the walls closing in, wondering how I'd fight this lie. But what came next would shock everyone and change the course of the trial forever. The air in the courtroom grew heavier with every word my mother spoke, her voice sharp and unwavering, slicing through my heart like a cold blade. I sat at the defendant's table, my navy blazer slightly wrinkled from nervous fidgeting, staring at the pale band on my finger where my wedding ring used to sit. 6 months ago, I'd taken it off, hoping to leave behind the pain of my divorce from Marcus. But now, in this small-town American courthouse, under the unforgiving glare of fluorescent lights, I faced a far deeper betrayal. My mother, the woman who raised me, stood before the judge and declared me unfit to be a mother to my own son, Tyler. "She's never been stable," she said, her tone growing bolder, as if she'd rehearsed this attack. "Rebecca can barely hold down a job. She's in and out of therapy, disappearing for days at a time. Frankly, Your Honor, she shouldn't have custody of my grandson." Each accusation landed like a punch, and I could feel the eyes of the courtroom strangers, Marcus's family, even my own sister Karen boring into me, judging me. Across the aisle, Marcus leaned back in his chair, a smug grin spreading across his face. His lawyer, James Crawford, a slick man in an overpriced suit, nodded along, scribbling notes as if my mother's words were gospel. They'd planned this, I realized, a calculated ambush to strip me of my son. Marcus had always resented my long hours, my quiet focus on work he never bothered to understand, and now he'd weaponized my own mother against me. She pressed on, her voice rising with conviction. "Rebecca lives in some cramped downtown apartment, drives an old beat-up car, and can't even afford Tyler's school supplies. Meanwhile, Marcus has a beautiful home in the suburbs, a steady job pulling 6 figures, and the means to give Tyler the life every kid deserves." I glanced at Tyler, my 8-year-old, sitting in the front row next to Karen. His dark eyes were wide with confusion, his small hands clutching the edge of the bench. He didn't understand why his grandmother was saying these things, why she was trying to take him away from me. My heart ached seeing him like that, caught in the crossfire of adult betrayals. Karen wouldn't meet my gaze, her silence as damning as our mother's words. I'd always been the private one in our family, keeping my life compartmentalized to shield Tyler from scrutiny. But now, that privacy was being twisted into something sinister. My mother painted me as a drifter, a woman with no ambition, no stability, no right to raise her grandson. She claims she's working, but I've never seen proof of any real job, she continued, her words dripping with disdain. For all we know, she could be mixed up in something shady, something that could put Tyler in danger. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, Marcus's family nodding in agreement from their side of the gallery. They filled the left half of the room, a united front of whispers and judgmental glances, while my side was nearly empty, just a handful of friends who'd taken time off work to support me. They knew the truth about my life, my career, but in this moment, their presence felt like a faint lifeline in a sea of hostility. I thought about the past 2 years since the divorce, the sleepless nights juggling custody arrangements while managing some of the most complex cases in the state court system. I'd worked tirelessly to balance my professional life with being the best mom I could be to Tyler, reading bedtime stories, helping with homework, tucking him in even when exhaustion weighed me down. Yet here was my mother, reducing all that to nothing, accusing me of neglecting my son. Marcus's lawyer stood, his voice smooth and confident. Your Honor, the testimony clearly shows that the child's best interests lie with my client. Miss Hayes's inability to provide stability, coupled with her secretive behavior, raises serious concerns about her fitness as a parent. Secretive. The word stung, not because it was true, but because it twisted my choice to protect my son into something suspicious. I'd kept my work private to give Tyler a normal childhood, free from the pressures of my world. Now, that decision was being used to paint me as a failure. I sat there, hands folded tightly in my lap, forcing myself to stay calm. 15 years in the legal system had taught me the power of timing, of letting others overplay their hand before revealing your own. But inside, I was reeling. My mother's betrayal cut deeper than Marcus's scheming ever could. She wasn't just questioning my parenting, she was erasing everything I'd built, everything I'd sacrificed for. Tyler's confused expression burned in my mind, his little face searching for answers I couldn't give him yet. The judge, Patricia Morrison, a colleague I'd known for over a decade, sat impassive behind the bench, her face a mask of neutrality. She knew me, knew my work, but in this courtroom, she was bound by the same impartiality I'd upheld in my own cases. As Marcus's lawyer wrapped up, I felt the weight of the room pressing down on me, the isolation nearly suffocating. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I had one move left, one truth that would shatter their lies and turn this trial on its head. The courtroom was a pressure cooker, the weight of my mother's accusations and Marcus's smug confidence pressing down on me like a vice. I sat at the defendant's table, my hands steady despite the storm inside, knowing this was the moment to turn the tide. 15 years in the legal system had taught me to wait, to let my opponents overplay their hand before revealing my own. Marcus's lawyer, James Crawford, had just finished his self-assured speech, claiming I was unfit to raise my son, Tyler, his words dripping with condescension. The judge, Patricia Morrison, a colleague I'd known for a decade, turned to me, her face unreadable. Miss Hayes, how do you respond to these allegations about your employment and ability to provide for your son? She asked. I rose slowly, my navy blazer smoothing out as I stood, my voice calm but firm. Your Honor, I'd like to call a witness to address those concerns. A ripple of confusion passed through the room. Crawford's brows furrowed, his polished demeanor cracking. Your Honor, we weren't notified of any witnesses, he protested, flipping through his notes. I met his gaze evenly. The witness wasn't available until this morning, but his testimony will clarify everything. I walked to the heavy oak doors of the courthouse, my footsteps echoing in the suddenly hushed room. Every eye followed me, my mother's, Marcus's, even Tyler's from the front row, wide with curiosity. I opened the doors, and in walked a tall man in a tailored charcoal suit, his silver hair catching the light, his presence commanding instant respect. Your Honor, I said, my voice carrying across the stunned courtroom, I'd like to call Chief Justice William Barrett to the stand. A collective gasp sucked the air from the room. My mother's face froze, her confident smirk replaced by a look of sheer horror. Marcus's jaw dropped, and Crawford fumbled his pen, papers scattering across his table. Chief Justice Barrett, the most respected figure in our state's judicial system, strode to the witness stand with the quiet authority of a man who'd seen it all. I took a deep breath, my professional tone kicking in, honed by years of courtroom battles. Chief Justice Barrett, could you please identify me for the court? He looked at me, his eyes warm but formal. You are the Honorable Rebecca Hayes, Associate Justice of the State Supreme Court, where you have served with distinction for the past 8 years. The silence that followed was deafening, like the moment before a storm breaks. My mother's sharp intake of breath cut through the stillness, her hands gripping the edge of her seat. Marcus's lawyer scrambled through his papers as if searching for a script to rewrite this disaster. Tyler's eyes widened, a spark of awe replacing his earlier confusion. I pressed on, my voice steady. Chief Justice Barrett, could you describe the nature of my work responsibilities? Barrett's response was measured but powerful. Justice Hayes presides over some of our most complex civil and criminal cases. She sits on our appellate panel for death penalty cases, chairs our Judicial Ethics Committee, and has authored landmark decisions in family law and child welfare. The courtroom felt like it had tilted on its axis. My mother's carefully constructed narrative that I was a jobless, unstable drifter crumbled under the weight of the truth. Marcus, who'd spent our 6-year marriage dismissing my boring courthouse job, stared at the floor, his smugness gone. One more question, Chief Justice, I said, turning to face the gallery where Marcus's family sat in stunned silence. Could you address the allegations about my financial stability? Barrett's lips curved into a slight smile, the kind that signaled he knew the game was over. Justice Hayes earns a salary of $195,000 annually, plus benefits. She owns a penthouse apartment downtown and a vacation home in the mountains. Her financial disclosure forms, required of all sitting judges, are public record. The courtroom erupted in murmurs, Marcus's family exchanging panicked glances, their united front shattered. My mother's face was ashen, her earlier confidence replaced by a dawning realization of her mistake. Crawford, red-faced, tried to regain control, but the damage was done. Tyler looked at me, his expression shifting from confusion to pride, as if he was seeing his mother for the first time. I stood taller, the weight of their lies lifting, replaced by the truth I'd held back for so long not to hide, but to protect my son from a world that might judge him for my position. In that moment, the courtroom wasn't just a battleground. It was where justice began to reclaim what was mine. The courtroom buzzed with stunned silence as Chief Justice Barrett stepped down from the witness stand, his words still echoing. I was no drifter, no unstable failure, but the Honorable Rebecca Hayes, a state Supreme Court justice. My mother's face was pale, her hands trembling in her lap, while Marcus, my ex-husband, stared at the floor, his smug grin long gone. I stood at the defendant's table, my navy blazer now feeling like armor, and turned to Judge Patricia Morrison, a colleague whose steady gaze told me she was ready to hear my truth. Your Honor, I began, my voice clear and unwavering, I'd like to explain why my family was unaware of my position. The room leaned in, every ear straining to catch my words. For 8 years, I'd kept my role as a judge under wraps, not out of shame, but to shield my son, Tyler, from the pressures of my world. When I was confirmed to the state Supreme Court at 31, I said, glancing at Tyler's wide-eyed face. In the front row, I chose to keep my professional life separate. I wanted Tyler to have a normal childhood, free from the spotlight that comes with being a judge's kid. I turned to the gallery where my mother sat, her earlier confidence replaced by a look of regret. I live modestly, I continued, in a downtown apartment I own, driving a practical car, shopping at Target like any other mom. Not because I'm broke, but because I wanted Tyler to learn the value of hard work and humility, not grow up entitled. My voice grew stronger, fueled by years of quiet sacrifice. I didn't want him defined by my title or judged for my decisions on the bench. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his lawyer, James Crawford, scribbling furiously as if searching for a way to salvage their case. During our 6-year marriage, Marcus had mocked my boring courthouse job, never once asking what I did. Now, the truth laid bare his ignorance. The reason I'm often unavailable, I said, addressing the courtroom, is because I'm presiding over cases that impact thousands of families across the state. I've spent nights writing legal decisions, not abandoning my son, but ensuring justice for others while still tucking Tyler in at night. I faced my mother directly, her eyes avoiding mine. What hurts most, I said, my voice steady but laced with pain, is that these accusations come from people who never asked about my life. You assumed I was a failure because I didn't flaunt my achievements. You believed Marcus's lies over your own daughter. Karen, my sister, sat in the front row, tears streaking her face, her silence during this ordeal as cutting as our mother's words. I turned back to Judge Morrison. Your Honor, I've dedicated my career to protecting children and families. I've written rulings that removed kids from abusive homes, ensured fair custody arrangements, and put child welfare first. To suggest I'm unfit to raise my own son isn't just false, it's an insult to every family I've served. The courtroom was silent, the weight of my words settling over the room like a verdict. I handed Judge Morrison a folder. I'd like to submit my judicial performance evaluations, my financial disclosure forms, and a custody evaluation by Dr. Sandra Williams, a court-appointed child psychologist. Morrison flipped through the documents, her expression softening. As she read, Dr. Williams rates you as an exemplary parent, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who'd seen countless cases. She notes your strong bond with Tyler and no concerns about your ability to provide care. I glanced at Tyler, his face glowing with pride, a stark contrast to the confusion he'd shown earlier. Marcus's family, once so vocal, sat mute, their accusations dismantled. Crawford tried to interject, stammering, Your Honor, we had no knowledge. I cut him off, my voice sharp. No knowledge that your client was married to a Supreme Court justice for 6 years and thought I was a clerk? That's not ignorance. That's neglect. Judge Morrison leaned forward, her eyes meeting mine. Given the evidence and the concerning testimony from the defendant's mother, I'm granting full physical custody to Justice Hayes. Visitation for the father will be supervised for 6 months, pending completion of court-ordered parenting classes. The gavel fell, a sound that felt like freedom. Tyler's smile lit up the room, and I felt the weight of betrayal lift, replaced by the certainty of my worth. I wasn't just a mother fighting for her son, I was a woman who'd built a life of integrity, and no one could take that away. As the gavel's echo faded in the small-town courthouse, Tyler bolted from the front row, his small arms wrapping around my waist in a hug that felt like home. Mom, why didn't you tell me you were a judge? He whispered, his eyes shining with pride. I knelt down, smiling through tears. Because I wanted you to love me for being your mom, not my job, I said. He grinned, already planning to brag to his friends. My mother approached, her face etched with regret, stammering an apology. Rebecca, I had no idea. I'm so sorry, but her words couldn't undo the betrayal. You assumed the worst without asking, I told her, my arm around Tyler. You chose Marcus's lies over me. Marcus, humbled after completing court-ordered parenting classes, never questioned my ability to care for our son again. 6 months later, he earned unsupervised visitation, but the dynamic had shifted. He saw me clearly now. I learned a hard lesson in that courtroom. Hiding my achievements to protect Tyler had made it easier for others to underestimate me. I'd spent years shielding my light, but no more. I taught Tyler that integrity and hard work are worth celebrating, and that true respect comes from living authentically. Justice isn't just served in a courtroom, it's claimed by owning your truth. Loved this story? Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring tales of resilience and triumph, and hit the bell to never miss an update.